Amara woke up to the soft hum of her husband Tunde's snore beside her. Sunlight spilled gently through the cream curtains, painting the room in warm tones. To her, this was more than just a bedroom. It was a sanctuary, proof that love had carried her from the cramped one-room apartment of a youth to this well-furnished home in Soyule. She smiled, adjusting her wrapper and moving quietly to the kitchen to prepare his morning tea. Her narration sets the stage. When I married Tunde, I believed my life was complete. He wasn't rich when we met, but he was kind. Together, we built everything brick by brick. He was my partner, my safe place. As she prepares his meal, she remembers their early struggles, walking hand in hand under the Lagos heat, sharing roasted corn when they couldn't afford fancy dinners. She believed their bond was unbreakable. When Tunde walked into the kitchen, tall, confident, and freshly dressed in a crisp white shirt, he kissed her on the forehead. "My queen," he said with a smile that melted her heart. "You spoil me too much." To Amara, his words were gospel. She had no idea that beneath that charming smile, shadows were already forming. The chapter closes with a subtle foreshadowing. As she places his teacup in front of him, her voiceover echoes, "I thought my marriage was safe, but I didn't know the poison was already in my cup." The bustling market in Lagos was alive with sounds, women bargaining, children tugging at wrappers, sellers shouting about fresh tomatoes. Amara walked gracefully between stalls, her basket filled with yam and vegetables. As she paid for pepper, two women whispered loudly nearby, "Have you heard? That man, always in Soyule with one fine young lady. Ah, and his poor wife doesn't know anything." Amara caught fragments but ignored them. Women and gossip, she thought, shaking her head. She couldn't imagine her Tunde being involved in such talk. Her friend, Kaioma, later joined her at the yam seller stall. Kaioma was outspoken, quick to call out nonsense. She teased Amara playfully. "You and your perfect husband. Are you sure you know all his moves?" Amara laughed it off, lifting her chin proudly. "Kaioma, leave matter. My marriage is not like that." Yet, as she walked home, the whispers replayed in her mind. She dismissed them, telling herself she was simply being paranoid. But the seed of suspicion had been sown, even as she refused to water it. The chapter ends with Amara returning home to find Tunde's shirt smelling faintly of perfume. She hugs him anyway, forcing herself to believe, "My husband would never betray me." The days that followed grew strange. Tunde started coming home late, his excuses vague. Meetings, traffic, clients. Lagos always had reason for lateness. But Amara noticed subtle changes. The way he hit his phone screen, the expensive cologne lingering on his clothes, the distracted way he answered her questions. One night, Amara tried to confront him gently. "Tunde, is there something you're not telling me?" He chuckled, drawing her close. "Amara, you watch too many films. I'm working hard for us. Do you want me to stay poor forever?" His charm disarmed her. He kissed her deeply, whispering, "I love you. Don't let small things destroy what we built." But at night, when he turned his back to sleep, Amara stared at the ceiling, her heart heavy. Her instincts told her something was wrong, but her love convinced her to stay silent. The chapter closes with Amara narrating, "They say love is blind, but sometimes love is deaf too. I heard the truth in his silence, but I chose not to listen." Far away in Victoria Island, another story was unfolding. Cynthia, a young banker with flawless skin and an ambitious spirit, sat in a luxurious restaurant across from Tunde. She laughed, her manicured fingers tracing the rim of her wine glass. "Tunde, when will you stop hiding me like a secret?" she teased. Tunde adjusted his tie nervously. "You know it's complicated. Amara has been with me for years. But you bring out a side of me I thought I had lost." Cynthia smirked. She knew he was married, but she enjoyed the thrill of being the chosen one. To her, Amara was simply an obstacle. She had no guilt, only hunger for more attention, more gifts, more of Tunde's time. Later that night, Cynthia sent Tunde a message. "If you don't make a decision soon, I will." The chapter ends with Tunde staring at his phone, torn between loyalty and lust. Meanwhile, Amara prepared his favorite soup at home, humming joyfully, waiting for a husband who was dining with another woman. One quiet Saturday morning, Amara decided to pamper Tunde. She woke early, carefully brewed his special ginger tea, and set the table with akara and pap. To her, serving him was an expression of love. As she carried the steaming cup, she whispered a prayer. God, bless this home. Keep us safe. Tunde, however, stared at the cup longer than usual. His face tightened for a moment before softening into a practiced smile. Unknown to Amara, his mind had begun entertaining dangerous thoughts planted by Cynthia's constant pressure. But Amara only saw her beloved husband sipping the tea she made with care. She smiled, believing she was securing their bond, while the narrator foreshadowed. She thought her marriage was safe, but the poison was already in her cup. The chapter closes on a cinematic shot, Amara's hand gently resting on Tunde's as he drinks. Her eyes sparkle with trust. His eyes hide a storm of betrayal. Kyoma, Amara's outspoken childhood friend, visited one breezy afternoon. The aroma of aguzi soup filled the kitchen as they cooked together, laughing between stirring and tasting. But Kyoma's laughter soon faded into a serious expression. Amara, she began carefully, I've seen Tunde twice now, and not alone. That girl is always with. She's no colleague. I know what I saw. Amara's spoon froze midday. Kyoma, please don't start. People talk. Yes, but Tunde? He's not that kind of man. Kyoma sighed, her eyes full of frustration. You're blind because you love him. But open your eyes, Amara. Sometimes the person closest to you is the one holding the knife. Amara grew defensive, her voice sharper than usual. Kyoma, stop. You don't know him like I do. He would never betray me. Silence hung between them. Kyoma shook her head sadly. I pray you're right, my sister. But if you're not, may God open your eyes before it's too late. The chapter ends with Kyoma leaving, the bond between the friends strained. Amara tries to dismiss her words, but her heart beats uneasily. She forces a smile for Tunde when he returns, but inside, Kyoma's warning echoes like thunder. Cynthia grew impatient. One evening, she cornered Tunde in her apartment, dressed in a silky gown. Tunde, she hissed, I'm tired of hiding. Either you end things with that wife of yours, or I'll walk away, and you'll lose me forever. Tunde panicked. He couldn't imagine losing Cynthia, yet Amara's loyalty bound him like chains. That night, sleepless and restless, he stared at Amara lying peacefully beside him. His mind wrestled with dark thoughts. In his desperation, he found a shady pharmacist in a backstreet shop who sold him a small vial. The liquid inside was clear, tasteless, deadly. The man's words echoed, just a few drops, and she'll never wake. Tunde's hands shook as he held the vial later that night, staring at it under the dim light of the bathroom. He whispered to himself, this is the only way. Then I'll be free. But as he hid it in his drawer, his reflection in the mirror looked back at him, hollow, broken, and unrecognizable. The chapter closes with a vial glinting in the dark, a silent promise of death. The following morning was unusually calm. Birds chirped outside, and the smell of fried plantain filled the air. Amara hummed as she moved about the kitchen, while Tunde sat at the table, pretending to scroll his phone but secretly watching her every move. He slipped into the kitchen behind her, his hand brushing against hers as he reached for the sugar. With trembling fingers, he unscrewed the vial and poured a few drops into a teacup. His breath quickened, sweat forming on his brow. Amara, unaware, carried the poison cup to the sitting room, balancing it on a tray with akara and pap. She smiled brightly. Here, my love, I made it special for you today. But before Tunde could reach for it, the front door creaked open. Amara's mother, Ngozi, walked in, clutching her handbag. My children, she greeted warmly. I was passing by and thought to check on you. Amara beamed. Mama, sit down. Let me serve you tea. Without hesitation, she placed the steaming cup before her mother, the same cup laced with death. Tunde's heart dropped into his stomach. He stared at the cup, paralyzed. Amara's hands moved gracefully, proud to host her mother. She had no idea she was handing her mother death in porcelain. The chapter closes with Ngozi lifting the cup to her lips, sipping gratefully. The living room filled with casual chatter. Ngozi complimented Amara on her cooking, asked about family matters, and laughed at old jokes. But midway through her second sip, her laughter faltered. Her hand clutched her stomach. Her face twisted in pain. "Amara, what is happening?" she gasped. Amara dropped the tray, rushing to her mother's side. Mama, what's wrong?" Ngozi collapsed onto the floor, writhing. Tunde froze in horror, his body refusing to move. He watched the consequences of his own hand unfold. Amara screamed for help, dragging her mother up. "Tunde, don't just stand there. Call the car. We need to take her to the hospital now." The neighbors rushed in, confused by the commotion. Together, they carried Ngozi into the car. Tunde drove, his knuckles white on the steering wheel, his mind racing with guilt and fear. At the hospital, doctors rushed Ngozi into emergency care. Amara sobbed in the waiting area, holding onto Tunde's arm. She was fine this morning. How could this happen? Tunde's lips trembled as he forced himself to reply. It must have been food poisoning. But inside, his soul screamed. He knew the truth. The poison wasn't meant for Ngozi. Hours passed like years in the hospital corridor. Amara sat on the cold bench, her head buried in her hands. Tunde paced endlessly, each footstep echoing his torment. Finally, the doctor emerged, his face grave. "Madam, your mother ingested poison. We managed to stabilize her, but she is still very weak. It was almost fatal." Amara gasped, clutching her chest. "Poison? How? She only drank tea at my house." The doctor nodded sternly. "Then someone put it there deliberately. You must be very careful, madam." The words crashed into Amara like thunder. Her home, her safe space, now carried danger. She turned to Tunde, searching his face for reassurance. But his eyes darted nervously, his voice stumbling. Maybe it was a mistake. Something in the water, or the sugar. But Amara felt a chill. She had boiled that water herself, poured that sugar herself. Something wasn't right. The chapter ends with Amara whispering to herself in the empty corridor. Who would want to hurt my mother? Who would dare bring poison into my home? And the camera pans to Tunde's trembling hands, hiding the guilt of a man who had crossed a line that could never be undone. The sterile smell of the hospital clung to Amara's clothes as she paced the cold corridor. Her mother was lying unconscious, her breathing shallow. Doctors moved around quietly, avoiding her desperate eyes. When the senior doctor finally called her into his office, his voice was calm but firm. "Madam, this was no ordinary sickness. Your mother ingested poison, a very specific chemical. If she hadn't been rushed here, she would not have survived." The word poison echoed in Amara's mind like a drumbeat. Her body stiffened, her hands trembling. "Poison? But doctor, how? She only drank tea in my house." The doctor leaned forward, concern etched on his face. "That means the poison was inside your home, madam. And someone put it there deliberately." Amara's lips trembled. "Deliberately?" "Yes. Be very careful. Whoever did this could try again." Tears spilled down Amara's face. She staggered out to the office, clutching her wrapper tightly around her as if shielding herself from an unseen enemy. Her world was crumbling. She ran back to the waiting area where Tunde sat, his leg bouncing nervously. She grabbed his hand. "Doctor said it was poison. Tunde, how could this happen in our home? Who would want to kill my mother?" Tunde forced a look of shock. "Poison? That's impossible. Maybe it was something she ate before visiting us." But his eyes betrayed him, darting left, avoiding her gaze. For the first time, Amara felt a small spark of doubt about the man she trusted with her life. Back home, the night was heavy with silence. Amara lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying the doctor's words. Poison. Deliberate. Be careful. Beside her, Tunde snored lightly, as if nothing had happened. She turned her head, studying his face in the dim glow of the bedside lamp. His jaw was tight even in sleep, his hand curled into a fist. Her heart ached. Could it be him? No, never. The ticking wall clock grew louder with each passing second, echoing her fears. She tossed and turned, unable to sleep, her mind racing with questions. Who else had access to their home? Could anyone have tampered with the tea? The next morning, Kyoma visited again, bringing hot jollof rice. She hugged Amara tightly. "My sister, you look like you haven't slept. What's happening?" Amara's voice cracked. "Doctor said Mama was poisoned." "Poisoned? Kyoma." Kyoma's eyes widened. "Jesus Christ. Amara, open your eyes. Who prepared that tea?" Amara froze. The truth hit her like lightning. "I made the tea myself." Her hands shook as she whispered, "I made it. I gave it to her." Kyoma gripped her shoulders. "Then the question is, who else had a chance to touch that cup before your mother drank it?" Amara's mind raced. The kitchen, the tray, the sugar, and then Tunde. That night, Amara couldn't close her eyes. The man she once trusted with her heart now felt like a stranger lying inches away. A week later, while cleaning Tunde's car, Amara's eyes caught something under the passenger seat. She bent down and pulled it out, a small vial, its label smudged but faintly readable. Toxic, not for human consumption. Her heart nearly stopped. The doctor's warning, Kyoma's words, and her mother's collapse all collided in her mind. Her hand shook violently as she held the vial. Amara waited until Tunde left for work before locking herself in the bedroom. She studied the vial under the sunlight streaming through the curtains. There was no mistake. This was poison. Her legs gave way, and she crumpled onto the bed, clutching the vial against her chest. Tears streamed down her face as a realization sank in. It was him. My own husband. The man I trusted with my life tried to kill me. When Tunde returned that evening, Amara forced herself to act normal. She smiled faintly, served him dinner, and watched him eat, but every bite he took made her stomach turn. Inside, her love was rotting into fear. The chapter ends with Amara staring at a vial hidden in her wrapper pocket, her mind screaming, "What do I do with the truth?" Ugh. The breaking point came late one night. Amara waited until Tunde had changed into his night clothes. The vial lay on the bed between them like a silent judge. "What is this, Tunde?" she asked, her voice trembling. Tunde's eyes widened. He tried to snatch it, but Amara clutched it tightly. "Answer me. What is this doing in your car?" He stammered. "Amara, it's not what you think. I can explain." "Explain. My mother almost died, and you want to explain." Tunde's face hardened, his charming mask slipping. "You don't understand. Cynthia, Cynthia." Amara's chest tightened. "So it's true? There's another woman." He collapsed into a chair, his hands covering his face. His voice was broken. "She gave me no peace. She wanted me to leave you. I didn't want to, Amara, but she forced me. She said I had to end it one way or another." Amara's knees weakened. She had suspected betrayal, but not murder. Tears blurred her vision as she whispered, "After everything we built, you chose her over me." Tunde looked up, his eyes cold. "I never loved you the way you thought. Cynthia makes me feel alive. You were just comfort, stability, but she was passion." The words shattered her soul into pieces. She dropped the vial and stumbled back, choking on sobs. The chapter closed with Amara collapsing to the floor, her voice echoing through the room. "You tried to kill me for her?" Amara couldn't rest until she confronted the woman who had stolen her life. She tracked Cynthia to a sleek apartment in Victoria Island. When Cynthia opened the door, she smirked, folding her arms. Well, the famous wife. To what do I owe this visit?" Amara's voice shook with fury. "You almost killed my mother. You destroyed my home. Why?" Cynthia laughed lightly, her eyes glittering with arrogance. "Because, Amara, you were in the way. Tunde belongs to me. He always has. You were just his charity case." Amara's fist clenched. "You call destroying a family love? You call pushing a man to kill his wife passion?" Cynthia leaned closer, her voice dripping with venom. "You were naive. Marriage doesn't keep a man. Power does. And now, Tunde is mine." Amara's eyes burned with tears, but beneath the pain, something inside her shifted. Cynthia's words didn't just wound, they ignited something stronger. For the first time, Amara realized this wasn't just betrayal. This was war. The chapter closes with Amara walking away, her tears drying into silent strength. If they think I will crumble, they are wrong. I will rise, and when I do, they will regret ever tasting poison. Amara returned home from Cynthia's apartment with her soul in turmoil. 4 days, she barely ate, barely spoke. She moved like a ghost through her own house, replaying every word Cynthia had mocked her with. But one morning, sitting by her mother's hospital bed, Ngozi stirred and whispered faintly, "Amara, don't let them break you. When betrayal poisons your soul, truth is your antidote. Fight back." Those words lit a fire in her heart. Amara realized she had a choice, to remain a broken victim or to rise as her own savior. That night, she began to act. She carefully searched through Tunde's phone when he slept, screenshotting his messages with Cynthia. She tracked his bank transfers, saving records of the money he funneled to Cynthia's lavish lifestyle. Each discovery hardened her resolve. Her tears dried, replaced by a cold, calculating strength. For years she had lived in the shadow of love. Now she would shine in the light of truth. The chapter closes with Amara whispering to herself in the mirror, "You tried to bury me, Tunde, but you forgot I am a seed. I will rise." Amara didn't want revenge in silence. She wanted the world, their families, friends, and community, to see Tunde's mask torn off. She waited until the next family gathering, where relatives and elders came together to celebrate Ngozi's recovery. The whole buzzed with chatter, laughter, and the aroma of jollof rice. Tunde walked in confidently, shaking hands, smiling, acting the dutiful son-in-law. But Amara was ready. When everyone was seated, she stood, her hands trembling but her voice firm. "I need your attention. What I am about to reveal concerns my husband, the man you all think is faithful." Gasps filled the room. Amara laid her evidence on the table. Screenshots of his chats with Cynthia, bank statements of lavish gifts, and finally, the vial of poison she had hidden. "Tunde, you plotted to kill me. And when Mama drank the cup instead, you watched her collapse. This is a man you praise." The whole erupted in chaos. Elders shook their heads. Some shouted in disbelief. Others stared at Tunde in horror. Tunde tried to defend himself, but his words fell flat. His family name, once a pillar of respect, was now drenched in disgrace. The chapter ends with Tunde storming out of the hall, his reputation shattered, while Cynthia's name is spat in disgust among the guests. Humiliation wasn't enough. Amara wanted justice. With Kayoma's help, she went to the police, armed with a vial and the screenshots. The investigation moved quickly. Forensic tests confirmed the vial contained the same substance found in Ngozi's blood. Witnesses testified seeing Tunde purchase chemicals from a shady shop. One night, as Tunde returned home drunk and disheveled, police cars surrounded the compound. Red and blue lights flashed as neighbors peeked from their windows. "Tunde Adiwale, you are under arrest for attempted murder," the officer announced. Tunde's bravado crumbled. He shouted, begged, and cursed as handcuffs clicked around his wrists. Cynthia, upon hearing of his arrest, fled the city. Her once lavish life turned into ashes overnight. Amara watched from the balcony, her face calm, her heart steady. For the first time in years, she felt safe, not because she trusted someone else to protect her, but because she had protected herself. The chapter closes with a police car driving off, Tunde's shouts fading into the night. Amara turned back into her home, whispering, "Justice has only begun." Weeks later, Amara sat alone in her kitchen. The same kitchen where love had once been served in cups and betrayal had been stirred into tea. She brewed another cup of ginger tea, her hands steady, her face serene. As the steam rose, she thought of everything that cup had represented: love, trust, betrayal, and near death. She placed the cup before herself this time. No more serving poison to others, no more blind trust. This was her cup of freedom. As she sipped slowly, her narration carried the weight of a journey. "They thought poison would silence me, but it only woke me up. My scars will tell my story, and my story will heal others." She smiled, A real smile, not the false one she used to wear. The chains of fear had fallen. The camera lingers on her hand gripping the cup, strong and steady, before fading into black. Amara transformed her pain into purpose. With Kyoma by her side, she founded a women's support foundation in Lagos for wives who had faced betrayal and abuse. She called it the Safe Haven. In the opening ceremony, she stood tall in a flowing gown, her mother Ngozi seated proudly in the front row. Cameras flashed, women clapped, and Amara spoke with strength. My marriage was poisoned, but I survived. I was mocked, betrayed, almost destroyed. But I am still standing. And I stand so that no other woman will drink from a poisoned cup without knowing her worth. The audience erupted in applause. Her story spread across social media, sparking conversations, debates, and admiration. The betrayal that once nearly killed her became the very fuel for her empowerment. The final scene shows Amara walking through the gates of her foundation, children playing nearby, women smiling with hope. Her narration closes the story. I thought my marriage was safe, but the poison was already in my cup. Yet from that poison, I found strength, and now I am free.